when an elderly black woman politely requested a simple glass of water. She never imagined she would face resistance. However, the flight attendant's response was more than rude. It was outright disrespectful. It wasn't long before her son's unexpected revelation turned the entire situation on its head. Stick around to see how this powerful story unfolds. And let us know where you're tuning in from. We love hearing from our audience. The first-class cabin on the transatlantic flight from New York to London was nothing short of luxurious. Expansive leather seats in rich cream and charcoal stretched out into full beds, perfect for relaxing on the long journey ahead. The soft glow of ambient lighting bathed the space, while the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the scent of warm pastries, creating an inviting, tranquil atmosphere. Amidst all this comfort sat Eleanor Blake, a petite and dignified woman in her early 70s. She adjusted her silk scarf delicately, making sure it draped just right as she gazed out of the window. The view of the billowing clouds below reminded her of a journey she had dreamed about for years. After decades of hard work and selfless dedication, she was finally on her way to London, an experience her son, Christopher, had insisted on arranging for her. Christopher Blake, a renowned federal judge with a distinguished career, had worked tirelessly to ensure his mother's trip was as comfortable as possible. Eleanor had been his rock throughout his rise to success, and now it was his turn to give back. As Eleanor adjusted her reading glasses, she reached for the in-flight menu. After glancing at it briefly, she pressed the service button to request a glass of water. A flight attendant, Amanda Prescott, approached with a smile that felt rehearsed rather than warm. "How can I help you?" Amanda asked, her tone clipped. In her gentle voice, Eleanor replied, "Could I please have a glass of water?" Amanda glanced at Eleanor briefly, then at the menu, before turning back to her. "Water will be served after takeoff," she said curtly, already turning to leave. Eleanor leaned back in her seat, slightly taken aback by the dismissive response. It was a simple request, nothing unreasonable. As minutes passed, a sense of unease began to linger. After the plane leveled off and the seatbelt sign was turned off, Eleanor noticed Amanda cheerfully serving drinks and snacks to other passengers, her demeanor polished and professional. Confused, Eleanor pressed the service button again. This time, Amanda returned with an air of irritation. "What is it now?" Amanda asked sharply. "I'd appreciate that glass of water now, if you don't mind," Eleanor said, her tone calm but firm. Amanda sighed audibly. "Are you sure you're in the right section?" "This is first class," she said, her eyes scanning Eleanor's attire as if assessing whether she truly belonged there. Eleanor's brows furrowed, confusion washing over her. "I'm in the right section," she said softly. "My son arranged this seat for me." Amanda crossed her arms, her expression skeptical. "We've had situations before where passengers upgrade themselves without authorization. I'll need to see your boarding pass." The cabin grew quiet as nearby passengers turned their attention to the scene. Embarrassed, Eleanor reached into her bag, her hands trembling slightly as she retrieved her boarding pass. "There's no reason to treat me this way," she said quietly, hurt evident in her voice. Amanda barely acknowledged her, responding flatly, "I'm just following protocol, ma'am." At that moment, Christopher appeared, returning from the restroom. He immediately noticed the tension. His mother's trembling hands and the frustration etched on her face told him everything he needed to know. "What's going on here?" Christopher's voice was calm but commanding. Eleanor handed him her boarding pass. "She thinks I don't belong here," she whispered. The weight of her words hit Christopher hard. He had witnessed his mother endure prejudice throughout her life, but seeing her subjected to such treatment in her later years, in a seat he had carefully arranged for her, ignited a quiet fury within him. Christopher placed a reassuring hand on Eleanor's shoulder and turned to Amanda. "Is there a problem?" His voice was smooth, but carried an unmistakable authority. Amanda hesitated, visibly uncomfortable. "It's not a problem, sir. I just needed to confirm she's in the correct seat." Christopher's gaze sharpened. "You've seen her boarding pass. She is exactly where she's supposed to be. So why are we still having this conversation?" Amanda faltered. But Christopher didn't give her a chance to respond. Addressing the cabin, he spoke with deliberate precision. "You've made an assumption about my mother, and that assumption has led to her public humiliation. The real question is, why?" The cabin fell into a heavy silence. Some passengers looked on curiously. Others seemed uncomfortable. A man too rose ahead, gave Christopher a subtle nod of support. "This woman," Christopher continued, gesturing to Eleanor, "has spent her life fighting for fairness, dignity, and equality. She walked alongside leaders of the civil rights movement and took a stand when others stayed silent. And now, she's being questioned about whether she belongs in a seat that is rightfully hers." The murmurs in the cabin grew louder. A few passengers exchanged stunned glances, while others looked away, clearly uneasy. Christopher's voice grew firmer. "Let me make one thing clear. This is Eleanor Blake, a decorated activist, a recipient of national honors, and one of the people who helped this country move closer to true equality." Amanda's face flushed crimson. She stammered an apology, but Christopher cut her off. "This isn't about your intentions. It's about the impact of your actions. You disrespected and embarrassed my mother in front of this entire cabin. An apology is a start. But what will you and this airline do to ensure this never happens again?" The second flight attendant, Melanie Torres, stepped forward cautiously. "Judge Blake, Mrs. Blake," she said gently, "please accept my sincerest apologies. We'll report this incident to our supervisor immediately and ensure it's addressed." Eleanor, who had remained quiet throughout, placed a calming hand on Christopher's arm. "Let it go," she said softly. "I've faced worse. The best way to teach people is through forgiveness." Christopher hesitated. "Forgiveness doesn't mean ignoring accountability, Mom." Eleanor smiled. "I know, but holding on to anger doesn't serve us. Let's ensure this becomes a lesson." Passengers murmured their support, some applauding. Amanda, visibly shaken, turned to Eleanor. "I'm truly sorry, Mrs. Blake. I'll reflect on this." Eleanor nodded graciously. Respect is about kindness, no matter who someone is. As the plane soared across the Atlantic, Eleanor sipped the glass of water she had been denied earlier. Christopher watched her with pride but couldn't shake the question. Would the airline truly learn from this? Or was this just another hollow apology? Eleanor turned to him and said, "The fight never truly ends. But moments like this remind me why it's always worth it." Have you ever experienced or witnessed a moment like this? Share your story in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring tales of resilience and justice.